right, and we are a go. Welcome everybody back to Above Spirituality Season 2, Episode 21. I know there's been confusion on episodes. Just chill, bro. Just chill. I am here today with my friend Charlie. Charlie is a true Renaissance man, has many interests in various, organizations, containers, and experiences around Chicago in a variety of topics. He is a true spiritual citizen of Chicago. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Gino.
Now, I'm excited about today's topic because we're just going to talk about masculinity and spirituality. And, I'm excited about that because I have often, even on this show, had conversations about, like, as a man engaging with my divine feminine and femininity and like traditionally feminine experiences in spirituality. And, there's maybe in some people's minds, there's like a projection that masculinity can be a dirty word or a no-no topic, or there's a lot of trauma from, the way masculinity has been. But just as the feminine is half of, human soul, the masculine is the other half. So I'm really excited to be able to talk to that openly. And I'm very excited because that was your idea to bring it up. Mm-hmm. So just get started. How would you define masculinity in the spiritual sense?
Oh, man, I would say masculinity as an energy, I would define it as that energy that just drives and keeps on going. And I think the way that it shows up in our lives is that energy to move forward, the energy to protect, the energy to take it up to the next level, to find that edge, to test that edge. That seems to be the masculine energy for me.
And I obviously, and I hate getting into like things like this, but obviously toxic masculinity has like been a thing. And I really despise the image of men as these takers, get what you want at the cost of anything, and like, just put you and your grind and that kind of shit. Yeah. I love the image of men and masculinity as the father who protects. You think of like the old school, like Old Testament, or you think of like Pulp Fiction. I am my brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. Mm-hmm. That's what in so many ways a man should be. You go to dad because someone else is picking on you and you need help.
Yeah. One thing that I love about the community that me and you operate in is that we have so many great men. We have so many amazing men. Cole, who was on the show
it's been a pleasure to have
ago,
so many of them on the show.
Cole is probably like a perfect definition of what a man is. He's large and strong, but that doesn't make him a man. What makes him a man is his loving, protective, yet soft energy.
Oh, and you adore it because like if you're always there for the opening circles, like he's so insistent about consent and, not making what can be an intimate and physical experience sexual in a way that's unwanted. And it's good for a man to have that voice, especially someone who's a little imposing, even though he's a gentle soul. I mean, I wouldn't want to be on DJ Big Heart's bad side.
But yeah, you got so many great men in our community. Saranj is a very grounded man. Matthew is leading all sorts of men's circles. We have
love to have
people
him on the
like
show eventually.
Roman, who is really strong on nonviolent communication. We have so many men in our current vicinity that are making the other man just rise up and become better versions of ourselves.
Yeah, you think of like the ideal archetypical man, and it is maybe a little gendered because you think of them in like a leadership role. Mm-hmm. And obviously women can have their divine masculine. All people, it's like, if you look at Genesis, you could really interpret how when God said, God, and we created them, male and female, we created them. You could think of that as, we made one form that is man and one form that is woman. But you could also look at that as God was saying, we created human souls with both. But anyway, you think about like that archetype of the leader, and the leader is he who leads himself, and by leading himself brings others up with him or her. But when we're talking about masculinity, so forgive me if I get a little gendered.
Well, the way that I look at it, masculine and feminine are just energies. And I'm a huge
Yeah, yeah.
believer that we're all androgynous beings. And our
Mm.
job is to learn how to balance those two energies perfectly. I've been lucky enough to meet only a couple of people like that in my life. And when you meet them, you're like, okay, you are a fulfilled, complete human being. And then on the other side, we have men and women that lean a little too much towards one energy on the other. And that's where we start getting into like definitions of like toxic masculinity,
Sure.
toxic femininity.
Yeah, I have a friend who I'd love to have on the show one day. They were a classmate of mine in the school of metaphysics for a while, and trans person, very gender fluid. And it was so funny because like half of the community would refer to them as he, half would by she. And I loved this person. I always call her she. I loved her because she just thought it was funny and was like, I prefer they, but literally did not care what people said as far as I knew. And it was so cool to like interact with them because it was like when I take away all of my ideas about what a man should be or what a woman should be, and as a straight man, sometimes when you're interacting with women, you have your male energy in it. But when I was with this person, it was just like, oh, you are just person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we get those energies can define how we view other people.
Yeah, it's such a huge deal when you could start looking at someone for just a being and not for their gender. Because, for example, even interactions a lot of time between men become incredibly competitive really fast simply because we're both men.
Yeah.
But if either of us was a woman, it's like, okay, there's no more competition. There might be potential connection, but there's no competition of any kind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think some of that has to do with what the male energy, the masculine energy as we know it today, which is that in the school of metaphysics we like to say there's two energies in the universe. There's the aggressive and the receptive. And aggressive in your definition, active, going out, manifesting, doing, and that's something that's prominent in the male form. Do you know much about the science of how testosterone works in men?
No, tell me about it.
So this is really interesting because I am a believer that while a lot of these energies are metaphysical and thus are more dependent on the soul, and simultaneously then can be like something a woman can experience or something a man experience, doesn't really matter. I'm also a believer that some of the ways we see gender roles are somewhat based in biology. So an interesting thing I learned at the University of Illinois about men is that we have a baseline testosterone level, and it fluctuates constantly. And one of the ways it fluctuates is if a man perceives that he has won or is winning, you get a boost in testosterone.
Interesting.
Meanwhile, and it'll eventually go back to baseline.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if a man has perceived he has lost or looked down upon, he will get a dip in testosterone level that will eventually return to baseline.
That's fascinating. I just got a lot of blood work done because I wanted to know how my gut health is doing
Yeah,
and all that
yeah.
stuff. And the results came back with very high testosterone, but also very high estradiol, whatever the estrogen hormone is. And they said, like, you need to come back and get retested. And I was like, okay. I have been feeling in my main hero energy lately, and so I wonder if that's what's causing it.
Probably. I mean, I don't know about all the other guys in the audience, but like when I learned that in class, this was in a neurochemistry class. I was like, oh yeah, like obviously, like that makes so much sense, and I wonder how much that fosters this kind of this kind of competitiveness. And of course, a man, you think about like very classical sense, should master himself, master his urges, because we have these powerful energies. The masculine is a powerful energy.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think the masculine energy has the power to create and manifest when controlled properly. And I think it becomes our job to see, okay, can we use that energy for good?
Yeah. It's, and that does extend to women as well. Obviously goes without saying that, it's a good thing that women are learning to step more into their power. I'm kind of fucking over it with like You know, you just saw Matthew's interview, Matthew Cherney's interview, and he was talking about how a lot of the women he works with, have been abused in life. And it's just, is it cliche to say I'm fucking over, men, abusing women? And I don't want to get into that because that's just such an obvious thing. Because we can all find ourselves caught in the sin of wrath, if you want to get a little Abrahamic about it. And that is traditionally like a sin you could attribute to more masculine energy.
Yeah, I think that, deep down we all want to connect with one another and we all want to be in community, but a lot of times we don't know how. And through trying to connect with one another, we make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, that's reminding me of something a little close to home. Because we can make mistakes. And I know I was getting all righteous and passionate, but if you could feel my energy, just, it's like I'm stepping back because I know I'm not perfect. I know I have, in ways big and small, committed that sin as well. Who has not? And so much of that we hope and we give the benefit of the doubt to humanity is a mistake.
Yeah.
So I'm interested on getting your perspective on when the masculine energy arises in us and we do take it too far. How do we handle that mistake?
Oh, well, I've made one major mistake in my life that I think that I'm still paying for in many ways. And I think all that we can do is try to be on the other side of it as much as possible. I think there's not a single saint that will exist out there who hasn't made some large, major mistake. That's how people become saints in the first place. You decide that you never want to be on that side of the pendulum anymore, and you decide to swing your life in a completely different way.
And that really, the word that comes to mind is redemption.
Yeah.
And I don't know why recently on a lot of my interviews I've been so like my Christian upbringing comes back because obviously like you could think of Jesus, and if we want to get a little Jordan Peterson about it, the ideal man, or and of course he is the story of redeeming mankind, and so many of the saints and the great masters, of course many of whom were men, were seeking to redeem others. And to acknowledge that these powerful human energies, we can change. We can be redeemed. And you could say that it takes a real man to admit that.
I think that the one constant that's guaranteed in our universe is change. And it's so important that every single day we're changing ourselves. I think the most dangerous thing for me to hear would be someone telling me that I did not change. When people say like, "Ooh, you've changed," and I'm like, "Good, good." 'Cause I definitely don't want to be who I was yesterday. I want to be better than I was the week before.
Yeah, and it's interesting because talking about the competitiveness between men, I'm reminded of something. First couple lessons, School of Metaphysics, if you take their applied class, talk about this law of duality. How we're always comparing ourselves to each other, and how that can kind of beat on our self-esteem.
Yeah.
And they say, we call that the law of duality as like a universal law. And we say actually a higher use of that is turn that duality to you, compete against yourself.
Ooh, okay.
You're trying to use that ego. So in some ways, I feel like the masculine in spirituality is finding ways to productively use our egos.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
How do you see the relationship of ego to the spiritually masculine?
Ooh, I don't know how it connected to the spiritually masculine.
Yeah, putting you right on the spot, motherfucker.
Yeah, this is how I've been looking at ego. If we're coming from a duality side, right? Like
however
ego,
you like.
Ego becomes the glasses that I put on so I could have a separate experience from you. If all of us here are one, I put on the glasses that make me Charlie just so I could have an experience separate away from yours, just so you can look back and see a different perspective of yourself, right? And so that's how I've been looking at ego lately and really enjoying it because it makes me feel so much more connected to those around me, knowing that you're just another person with a different pair of glasses on, but in the end, we're all still one. Connecting it to masculinity, I think if you're looking at the perfect balance between the masculine and the feminine, can only be created if there is that duality.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
If we merge both of those energies that were separate back into one.
Yeah, and even though I am excited to talk openly about masculinity and even get even deeper than we have, it's something I've spoken to a number of times on the show, is that as a man, it has been extremely rewarding to get in touch with, the feminine side, to dance in a way that's been obviously somewhat feminine.
Yeah.
And even something I love is like dancing with the other guys at Ecstatic Dancer CBC. Huge shout out Patrick Fang, Luke Lindstrom.
Yeah.
And I love it too because I'm still getting my confidence
Yeah.
in contact dance. So I kind of love, I don't want to say like being the girl, but like letting them lead. And of course that is one of the benefits of a healthy masculine and like spiritual energy, is that you can lead and you can just jump into the things that you want to do, and you can facilitate, those who don't have it yet to do it.
Yeah.
You can help bring them into it too, just by your confidence and your character.
100%. Second shout out to Patrick Fang because he is definitely the definition of what a healthy, well-balanced man is.
Oh my God. Yeah. He just gets
I love him
right
for
into
that.
a hug. Like,
I love dancing with him, and incredible human being. What I was going to say on the topic of dancing and leading and following is like, yeah, I'm a social dancer by nature. I learned a lot of partner dancing growing up, and I've mostly been leading my entire life. And it's been so nice to kind of enter these communities and start mixing it up and doing switch and then also following. And I think for a lot of men, we lead mainly because we want control, mainly because we want to be safe. And if we feel safe, especially with other men, we're more than likely to allow them to lead us, knowing like, hey, you're going to take care of me. You're not going to overpower me. And I think when we run into those men that look like they're well balanced between their masculine and their feminine, we allow ourselves the chance to enter more of a follower role within the dance.
Yeah, we find as men that we're either socially expected or maybe have this inner urge to try to take control and be the leader. And what I'm sure many very successful men and women know is that when they follow another leader who is a secure, powerful person, there is a security in that, vocation in that. And, of course, that can be a woman who can be the leader. That can be a man. And I'm even thinking in dance, it's kind of fun to like, I don't know, I'm just going to say it, like to be the girl and like, oh my God, like to know what some women must have the experience of, like, oh, it's so nice to just let a man take charge.
Yeah.
And it's even been fun to like, when I dance with some of these women who are just incredible dancers, like just let them lead.
Yeah.
And then like discover their energy. And then as I discover their energy, then I can take my chance to lead. And it's so enjoyable to mix and mingle the energies. You feel whole.
100%. There is such a deliciousness in leading someone into your world, into your reality, into whatever feeling and emotion you want to get into the dance. And it's also really nice to allow them to create the reality. And at the end of the day, there has to be a willing receiving participant for this two-person dance to happen. And so giving someone the gift of leading is also a really beautiful thing. And I think one thing I've definitely learned from dancing is a way to communicate with women for me. Dancing is the way that I've connected with women almost 100% of the time. And women have so much to teach us through dance. They want to be soft. They want to be slow. They want to flow. And so being able to physically connect with them on that level has been the best way for me to build connection emotionally and energetically.
I feel like we can't have this particular aspect of the conversation without talking about sexuality. And
Sure.
to be clear, like the heteronormative.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, that experience you have of like when you're in a contact dance or partner dance, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
with a woman. And I'm sure it's the same experience or a similar experience for anyone who's homosexual and is dancing with the gender they prefer.
Yeah.
Of this like mind kind of slowing, this present mindedness as I match your energy.
Yeah.
And we just sort of psychically go with each other. And, hopefully and obviously that's the idealness of a sexual experience. And I feel like I can speak for myself that, men, I think it's so, we crave it. And I think it's because we're so disconnected from our own feminine that we know we're not whole. And like, so it's like when you're with a woman in that way, you're just like, oh, thank God. It's like I can finally, and especially if you're not being like overbearing in that act or ungenerous in that act, where you can just be, and you can be that connectedness.
Yeah.
You feel whole in that, and I feel like sometimes women misunderstand that about men, and obviously not to say men don't misunderstand women, but like, I think sometimes they think that the desire for physicality that men have in sexual intimacy is like just a lust.
Yeah.
And they don't understand how it's like, no, this is like how I can finally feel whole. Like this is a very loving thing,
Yeah. Oh man, 100%. I know that the way so many women look at men are just like, oh, this is just a guy that just wants to have sex with me. But I think what they don't realize is men, we're craving physical affection. We're craving emotional support. We're craving intimacy. We're craving to be understood. And so partner dancing feels like such a safe way to get to experience that with the opposite sex, with the same sex, whatever it might be. And the fact that it's growing into a larger and larger community because we're all realizing that is a really beautiful thing for me to see. I love seeing partner dancers who are doing it for the first time realize like, oh wow, especially couples, they're like, wow, this is much more intimate than any sex we ever had. There are so many dances that I have with people that easily transcend some of the best physical sex I've had, and you guys know who you are. But that's the main reason why I dance, because I love to connect on a deeper level. I love to enter a playful state. I love to be able to have sensuality enter our dances. Yeah, mixing it up is so beautiful.
Before this, we were talking about where we met, which was at a CBC event by Matthew Stakowitz, who I'd love to eventually get on the show. He's an incredible human being and produces incredible events. And I'm sure we've hyped him up enough on many episodes. I just remember that was like the first time I'd ever had an experience like that.
Yeah.
And I've been vocal on the show about how, ecstatic dance can really bring up a lot. And I remember, when I finally got the courage at this little event, it was at a park right by the lake in Chicago. I was dancing with this woman. I never knew her name. I don't even know if I'd recognize her in this moment. And we were doing the contact dancing, and we were just looking at each other's eyes. And I have no idea who this human being is. And so much like love and connection came up. You know what my experience was?
What?
I almost cried out of the sadness that I had been robbed of that much connection for the vast majority of my life. And you'd have to be like some sort of spiritual master to stay in that much connection. But it was just like, it blew me away. And then I went and I almost cried because I couldn't even keep dancing because I was just like, the feeling of that was like, how the hell did most of my life go without this?
Oh my God, yeah. Something as simple as just eye contact. It's so strong, and I think especially in today's society where we're so used to staring at phones and
Oh,
connecting with humans through a screen and seeing what they've done, we forget how to have really good eye contact. And when you can have a dance that has a solid eye contact in it, it just transcends so many other things.
yeah. I love the connecting, and I love even when you're in solo dance, just like, you do some moves that are kind of feminine, you do some moves that are masculine.
Yeah.
And I think a symptom of, or you could say a karma, of how the masculine energy has been misused. And I don't want to blame the masculine energy for that. I would say it's because humanity wasn't super evolved.
Okay.
So I would say, it kind of makes sense that the more literally aggressive of the energies was going to be like, if you give a caveman the more aggressive energy, yeah, he's going to dominate the supposedly weaker one. And that's not because the masculine energy was bad. It's because, yeah, you gave this to caveman and children. So, yeah, the bigger kid's going to push around the little kid, which is sad. But I think kind of the karma of that is that many men feel like it's bad or it's dirty to be a man. And, of course, there's plenty of men who are secure in their masculinity or they take it too far. But it feels good, and I want to say this in no uncertain terms in spiritual sense, it feels good as a man to be masculine in ways traditional or untraditional, and that's part of you connecting to the energy of your soul.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
So it feels good as like, whereas a man who is like not masculine would be, you think of someone who's unempowered.
Okay.
Not able to affect change.
Yeah.
Not able to acquire things he wants. Not able to contribute to a group. It feels good to, as a man, to stand up, to speak your truth and have people listen. Or to, be a part of an endeavor and be like contributing, getting in with your hands, working on something. Or I remember this because I used to run a sushi restaurant. And for a while, most of my front of the house team was men.
Okay.
And then eventually we started getting girls who were like female servers. And it always felt good in a few opportunities I had when like, a customer was overstepping a line with them to step in and be like, whoa, no.
I see.
Like,
Yeah.
I remember there was a young lady she's funny, she's a cop now. And this guy was giving her a hard time. And I walked right over to him. And he was like 2 seconds away from him walking over to him being like, sir, you can't speak to my server like that. You don't have to. He was waiting for his food. Like, you don't have to pay for that beer, but you got to get the fuck out of here. I got there just in time and said, whoa, sir, you can't say that. I want to make sure your food comes out here. Here, how about this? Your beer's free, And that felt good to be that for her because I could see her like freezing up, This guy was a dick.
Yeah. I think deep down as men, we all want to feel like we could step into that power to protect, right? To serve our communities. We want to feel like we matter, that we're not just like transient matter.
Yeah.
Right?
Start thinking of like the male loneliness epidemic or the low value male syndrome. This is not an alpha podcast, I swear.
It's an incredibly growing thing, though, and I see
Yeah.
it so much in my brothers, and I think that's one of the main reasons why I really am looking to connect within community and grow brotherhood, because I'm seeing so much of that.
What would you say are the qualities, in a positive sense, of masculinity?
Ooh, I would say the biggest quality would definitely be to protect. I think that's what that energy is meant to do. The next best quality would be to manifest and create, because definitely feminine energy leans more towards receiving, and so masculine energy really is more about creating. I love leaning into that energy. There's nothing better for me than creating experiences for other people.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love like hosting events and shit, doing this podcast.
Yeah, and that's masculine energy. That's the energy, the drive to create, to share. Yeah.
You used the word brotherhood.
Yeah.
A little while ago. Tell me more about what that means to you.
Mm.
How are we doing on time?
For me, brotherhood is the most important thing in my life right now. I grew up very shy, very awkward, definitely
No
very
shit.
antisocial, extremely. And I was about 16 years old when I started to make a change. Read a bunch of books, started taking it seriously. And I saw my peers, my brothers, who were stuck in that same mindset, who little by little became just lonely and desperate. And I'm lucky enough that I feel like I'm operating from a place of abundance lately, and it feels really, really, really good. And so there's no more competition feeling inside of me when I look at other men. I just look at brothers. I look at people who I want to uplift. I try to definitely do that in community, especially on the dance floor. I try to usually find the one guy who's not really dancing, who looks a little shy. I'll pull him up and say, "Hey, do you want to dance with me?" I'll introduce him to a female follow so they could practice leading dance. I think that it's within our power to make the world a better place by uplifting all of our brothers around us, because those are the ones that are causing the most harm, the ones that feel alone, the ones that are completely isolated, the ones who think that nobody cares about them. So I think it's so important to acknowledge them, to bring them in, to like offer them that affection that we were talking about earlier, that connection that they desperately need. A lot of times they may not get it from, the feminine female gender. So I think it's up to us to like remind them that they're not alone, that we're always there for them.
My God, I mean, especially here in America, you just think
Yeah.
of the story of
Yeah.
every, you know, unfortunate lost soul who's, picked up a gun and gone to a public place,
Yeah.
And it's interesting how you were saying how, you grew up and feeling kind of shy, because I was the same way, and feeling small and feeling weak, which, of course, to be small and weak is to a man, or I'm sure to a woman too, but like to the masculine part of any being is like anathema, that's like, oh God. And I think we've all can either empathize with, or we can understand like the child, or the small and weak part of ourselves that just in a desperate prayer is just like, I wish someone would help me. I wish someone would help me to do the thing that I can't do. And I'm actually getting like emotional thinking about it. Like, that is probably one of the truest expressions of the masculine side of God within you, And you think of like Jesus, like helping their brothers. Or you think of like, you think of like Krishna telling Arjuna, don't be a coward. Like, you can do this. You think of the Buddha saying like, we're going to recite these sutras, and if one person messes up, like his friend next to him will remind him.
Yeah.
And that's where we could be. That's what masculinity in any context, but especially a spiritual context, can have, And let me help you. Let me show you,
Even something as being vulnerable around your brothers is the most healing thing you could do sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in like Western, or I'm sure this is so true everywhere, because it's in the presence of even what you call a toxic masculinity, to show the vulnerability, that marks you as the weak one in the pack. Like, that's who we're eating. If we run out of food, we're going after Jimmy, little Jimmy. That's why we keep you around. And people probably sense that.
Yeah.
But they don't understand that through facing their vulnerability and learning ways to become comfortable in it, process in it, there's huge, tremendous growth. And I want to go on record as saying that's so true for both men and women, that so much spiritual growth happens as we own our vulnerabilities, can express them in healthy ways, and work through them. We become strong. I had heard shit like that, but I wasn't sure it was true, but I'm finding, holy hell, it's true as fuck.
Yeah.
As we wind down, I just want to ask, like, if you, among other things, might ask a few questions, we might end on this. if you had any advice on a young man, or an old man, I mean, any man, and I'm just going to say, specifically, I'm going to say men. For any man who's watching this, listening to this, how would you give them encouraging guidance to step into their own masculinity?
Ooh, I would tell them that it's absolutely okay to step into your masculinity. I think we're entering a stage in our society where we felt like the pendulum has swung too hard on like the toxic masculine side, that men are a little bit afraid of being men. And so that needs to be fixed. It's great for us to lean the other way, but I think there's balance that can be found somewhere in the middle. I think that to be a man is definitely to embody a lot of the traits that we consider as feminine, such as being vulnerable. Like a strong man is definitely one who's vulnerable. A strong man is one who's willing to stand up for what he believes is right, even if his voice shakes, even if he's the only one on one side of the group against the majority. I think that's what a man is. So I would say learning to stand up for yourself, for your own beliefs, for chasing your own goals and desires is the best way to become a man.
And what I think, just to add to that, what a lot of men fear or don't realize is that when you step into stuff like vulnerability or things that may be considered like womanly or feminine, because some of those things, they are vulnerable and they are owning hurt.
Yeah.
The masculine within you, the feminine within you, I don't even know what I would say, but the spirit within you, by facing them bravely, conquers them. And that thing that you've been repressing or hiding from that's been probably fucking ruining your life, if you own it and you express it and work on it, it loses its power over you.
Oh, yeah.
And then you are able to have that power. And this is for both men and women. Then you own the power of the masculine within you. And that's something I can't recommend enough for everybody.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer that on the other side of your fear is your freedom. And so my goal in life, when people say, like, what are you doing with your life? I'm like, I'm just trying to be as free as possible. And the way that I do that is by looking at the things that I'm afraid of that make me uncomfortable, seeing if I could face them, seeing if I could climb that wall of fear so I could step on the other side and have one less thing that I'm carrying on my shoulders.
Well, Charlie, I just want to give you this opportunity. Is there anything else that your heart wants to say on any topic?
Oh, my God. I mean, we didn't get to touch up on any metaphysical topics, which would be a blast. We didn't get to talk about...
I feel like we were very metaphysical in ways.
I would love to talk about just some burner experiences, psychedelics, meditation. I love to talk about sensory deprivation. I mean...
Well, we tackled a big topic.
Yeah.
We were so ambitious. We were so ambitious
I'm
beforehand.
excited to, I'll wait 2 seasons. I'll come back.
We'll get you back on the show.
I'll
get you back on the show.
But I think as a close out, you were saying like what's going on in my life. I would say I'm trying to build community. That's the main thing that I'm doing. That's my focus for 2025 and moving forward. Me and my partner Star Stuff are building community through simple things like dinner nights and movie nights, and we're growing within our ecstatic dance family. I'm trying to grow as a musician and get more comfortable in jamming with wonderful humans. I love flow, and finding group flow especially is a big hobby of mine. So through all the hobbies that I do, I'm just trying to enter that state of flow. And so if you see me around on the dance floor, come dance with me. If you see me sitting down, come talk to me. I'm always available and try to be as inclusive as possible.
Well, I mean, you already kind of did it, but plug your shit, man. Is there anything specific that people might be able to reach you at? Or if you want to shout out any of the communities you're a part of by name?
Just come and find me in person. That's all you got to do.
Sick. We'll have the Instagram at least. Well, thank you, Charlie. It's been an absolute pleasure to have this open conversation.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Hey. Man.